on the show.
Good morning. We are in the middle of the Alter Rebbe's Shulchan Aruch, chapter 299, Reish Tzadik Tes, and we're about to close up the laws of one's meal, which began at a time that one was allowed to begin a meal on Saturday afternoon, Shabbos afternoon, and extends into Saturday night. So yesterday we raised the following. Towards the end, we raised the following issue, which is if the person did it all right, which means they began the meal early enough in the day, which means they have full right to continue their meal into Saturday night and not extend their Shabbos with their meal, no problem, because they started early enough. Now it's time to bench, Berchat HaMazon, and then Havdala. Now, the question becomes, what does one do with the cup over which they recited the Berchat HaMazon? The permissibility, the permission to keep on eating is because your meal extends Shabbos. Once you do Berchat HaMazon, your meal is over. But now you have a cup of wine you got to drink. So said the Alter Rebbe like this yesterday. If you're the kind of person who always has a cup of wine for Berchat HaMazon, then here too, it's an extension of your meal, even though your meal is technically over by the result of Berchat HaMazon. But because it's your meal that's requiring you to drink this extra cup, as you always do when you do Berchat HaMazon at the end of a meal, therefore drink your wine.
Does that mean that you don't always have to drink the wine?
Sorry? If you're the kind of person who every single time you do Berchat HaMazon, you hold a cup of wine.
Yeah, so it means that some people don't.
Do you? I don't. Every time I do Berchat HaMazon, I hold a cup of wine. I don't do that.
But you drink the cup.
I don't always hold one. On Tuesday for lunch, you finish lunch, you hold a cup of wine for Berchat HaMazon. You don't. I don't either. But if you were the kind of person who did, because there is that view that every single time we do Berchat HaMazon, they hold a cup of wine, just like Kiddush. You always hold a cup of wine during Kiddush. These guys always.
My dad with wine.
Never seen him.
Never.
Right? Most don't, but many there is a view that does. So if you're that kind of person, then on MOTZEI Saturday night, if your meal extended to after Shabbos and you do Berchat HaMazon and you're holding a cup of wine because you always do, then drink the wine. But if you don't always do it, like we don't always do it, then you shouldn't drink the cup of wine because as soon as you Berchat HaMazon, your meal's over, no longer allowed to eat until you do Havdala. So you shouldn't drink a cup of wine. And we began discussing yesterday. Is this clear so far? So that would be for us. We don't always do Berchat HaMazon over a cup of wine, right? That would be drinking basically a cup of wine every single day because you always, sometimes twice a day because you wash, right? Right. We reserve it for special occasions when you have a minyan or whatever. Even though Hayom Yom writes that even if you have less than 10, you can hold a cup of wine, but it's reserved for the most part for occasions, not for any time you do Berchat HaMazon. Okay, which means for us who don't always hold a cup of wine during Berchat HaMazon, we should not drink any cup of wine after Berchat HaMazon on Saturday night until you have to do Havdala. Because once you do Berchat HaMazon, your meal is over. You're no longer allowed to eat until you do Havdala. Okay. Now, we raised the issue yesterday. It wasn't so clear, but we're going to be crystallized now. If you did hold, or if you decided you want to hold a cup of wine during Berchat HaMazon, what do you do with that cup of wine? Right? So we said you have to go straight into Havdala. From your Berchat HaMazon straight to Havdala. Because if you had only one cup of wine, you're combining both Berchat HaMazon and Havdala, you do it right away. Hold the cup for Berchat HaMazon, go straight into Havdala and drink it at the end. Right? If you only have one cup of wine. What if you have 2 cups of wine? Then one for Berchat HaMazon and one for Havdala. But the one for Berchat HaMazon you can't drink until you make Havdala. So what now? So what we mentioned yesterday, what you would probably do is make Havdala and then drink your cup of wine that you made Havdala over, and then drink the other cup of wine upon which you made Berchat HaMazon. That's what we're about to discuss now, which we mentioned yesterday.
You can't just use the same cup.
So as a rule, we don't want to combine 2 mitzvahs into 1 cup of wine, right? We learned that in the Gemara, unless you only have 1 cup.
I would say the blessings after the meal on Shabbos night.
Yeah.
And at the end of the blessing, you say the bracha of the wine.
What are you talking about, for Havdala?
No, for
You hold a cup of wine every time you do Berchat HaMazon?
No, you sit down.
When are you talking
Read
about?
all the blessings.
What are you talking about?
The blessings after the meal.
on a regular day, on a Saturday
No,
night.
on Friday night.
We're talking about Saturday night now. Well, let's just say Friday night. So, okay, so what?
So I read all the blessings.
Yeah,
And in the end is blessing for the wine.
no problem.
So I have the wine in front of me,
No problem.
and I stand up and I just drink it.
No
That's
problem.
all.
No problem. So there you were reciting on a Friday night, Birkat Hamazon over a cup of wine.
Okay, so now
Here
we're
it's
on
Saturday night. Okay? So you use the permission granted to you to extend your meal into Saturday night because Shabbos extends your meal.
Mhm.
But once your meal's over, you're no longer allowed to drink until you make Havdala.
Mhm.
So but you held a cup of wine for Birkat Hamazon. What do you do with that? You can't drink it because you didn't make Havdala yet. Right? So if you only had one cup of wine, you don't have a second one, then that same cup of wine you held for Birkat Hamazon, you just keep on reading into Havdala. Right? But if you have more than one cup of wine, you may not combine two mitzvahs into one cup, your Birkat Hamazon and your Havdalah. So what do you do now? Yeah. So if you're of the view that every single time you do Birkat Hamazon, you always hold a cup of wine, okay, so you have one cup of wine for Birkat Hamazon, you drink it, and then another cup of wine for Havdalah. But for the rest of us who don't always hold a cup of wine Birkat Hamazon, which means we may not drink from that cup of wine Birkat Hamazon, if I have 2 cups of wine, and let's say I decide to hold a cup of wine for Birkat Hamazon, what should I do with that cup of wine? I may not drink it after Havdalah, after Birkat Hamazon, because I'm not allowed to drink until I do Havdalah. And for Havdalah, I'm using another cup of wine, because I'm not going to combine 2 on 1 unless I only had 1 cup. And here I'm more than 1 cup. Clear on this?
Yeah.
This is where we are. We started to address it yesterday, but now it's going to become crystallized. Yeah?
No, I just have. If you do the blessing of Birkat Hamazon over the wine glass, because I didn't even know people do that.
You do it at the Seder, for example.
Yeah, at the Seder, because you have.
So people do it all the time.
Okay, but so you're doing Bor Peregefen, like you said at the end.
That's right.
So then you have to drink some of it.
Oh, but for here you're not allowed to because you can't not allowed to drink until you make Havdalah. Which would mean you drink. Which would mean you hold a cup of wine for Birkat Hamazon.
Yeah.
Put it down. Don't make a guffin, and then that's it.
You don't make a guffin.
And don't drink it. Yeah, that's right.
So then, if you don't make a guffin, it's.
You just hold it. You're just holding it during the Birkat Hamazon, and there is such a thing to hold a cup of wine during a blessing, even if you're not going to drink it. There's precedent for that idea. So here you're holding a cup of wine for Birkat Hamazon, but you're not going to drink it after.
So if you didn't do a guffin, what stops you from doing Havdalah on it?
Because then you're combining 2 mitzvahs into 1 cup. So you got to get a second cup for Havdalah. That's right. So you do Havdalah, and we're going to see in a second, you go back to the second cup. We'll get to that in a second. This is what we're talking about. Okay? So now, he's holding 2 cups of wine. Okay, so 1 second. Because he owns enough wine for 2 cups, and therefore he may not combine Birkat Hamazon and Havdalah into 1. He may not drink his cup after Birkat Hamazon because he's not allowed to drink until he makes Havdalah.
Mm-hmm.
So hypothetically, at least the way we left off yesterday, the person should not hold a cup of wine during Birkat Hamazon because that would force him to drink, like you're suggesting, right? So don't hold a cup of wine, Birkat Hamazon finished, and just do it without a cup and then go to Havdalah.
But you can pour the cup, but you just leave it there.
Are you holding it during Birkat Hamazon or not?
No. I never hold it during.
Okay, so when you do,
I never hold it during the whole thing. I just hold it at the end.
Okay, you should hold it not during the whole thing, but till after Banu Shalayim, you should hold it. If you're like Friday night leading the benching and you're doing it with a cup of wine, then you fill it up before benching, like you do by the Seder. You fill it up before Birkat Hamazon. You hold it from Rabbatai Nevarech, Rabbatai benching, whatever. You hold that until after Banu Shalayim, put it down, finish the Birkat Hamazon, and then pick it up to make a guffin. And that way, it's kind of like Kiddush, where you're reciting over a cup of wine, you're reciting Birkat Hamazon over a cup of wine. Similar kind of thing. There are those who do this every single time they do Birkat Hamazon, but we don't. Okay, so let's now look at the parentheses in the end of Halacha Zayin, the last 2 paragraphs of Zayin. So just before Ches, I can show you where it is. Just before that, oops. So you remember, sorry? Yes, so you'll remember we discussed this once, that the Alter Rebbe Shulchan Aruch is primarily a collection. But when he puts something in parentheses, it means it's his original thought, which would mean, it would seem to me that this would be the final ruling. So the parentheses there. Now, even following that view, that Birkat Hamazon does not require you to hold a cup every time. That's our view. We don't hold a cup of wine over every single time we bench. Nevertheless, because now Saturday night, for whatever reason, in this meal that you've extended from Shabbos into Saturday night into Motzei Shabbos, you are now doing Birkat Hamazon over a cup of wine. You're inspired. You want to do it that way. It's if I'm bringing in the 10 people, so you definitely want to hold a cup of wine. And why are you doing that? Because everybody agrees. It's certainly a more prestigious mitzvah to hold a cup of wine. So even if you have the view that you don't have to hold a cup of wine for Birkat Hamazon, it's still better to. It's still a more prestigious mitzvah. So you decided to do it now. If so, if so, that same logic that says it's the best way to do the mitzvah by holding a cup of wine, that same logic says it's best to drink that cup of wine in order to perform the mitzvah in its best possible way. Even though he's not obligated. Because as we established, we're of the view that we don't hold a cup of wine for every single time we bench, which means we are not required to drink wine every single time we do Birkat Hamazon, but it's certainly nicer to. And this time, Saturday night, you decided you want to. So if that's the case, what do I do now? So if I'm of the view that every single time I do Birkat Hamazon, I have to hold a cup of wine, then it's not a best case scenario to drink it. It's a requirement to drink it. And therefore I do drink it even before my Havdala. But in this case, it's not a requirement to drink this wine before Havdala, but it's best case scenario to. So what do? Therefore he says like this. Therefore, he should make Havdala right after benching, on that very cup, in order to drink it right away. Again, only if he has one cup. So if I only have one cup of wine in the house, I hold it for Birkat Hamazon, I keep on holding it right into Havdala, make a guffin and drink. And that way one cup combined 2 mitzvahs. But if I have a full bottle of wine, so I have more than one cup available to me, so I'm holding one cup during Birkat Hamazon because that's the best way to do the mitzvah. And even though I'm not obligated to drink it, it's best case scenario that I do. So the fact that if it was a mitzvah to drink it, then I would drink it even before Havdala. But if it's not a mitzvah to drink it, it's best case scenario to drink it. I can't take the best case scenario and override the prohibition of drinking before Havdala. So what do? You right away, so you're holding the cup of wine for Birkat Hamazon. You put it down and right away pick up the second one and do Havdala.
So you don't do both on the first cup.
That's right. And don't make hagafen on the first cup you made Birkat Hamazon on. Only on the second cup upon which you're reciting Havdala. And right after you drink cup number 2, which is your Havdala cup, you go back to drinking cup number 1, your Birkat Hamazon cup, in order for the choice mitzvah. So this is about the Havdala's logic, which we kind of touched upon yesterday. Yeshua, you mentioned this yesterday, and here it becomes crystallized for us.
Right. And that second cup that you go back to drink, you don't make a bracha, right?
No, you don't make a bracha on it because you just made it in Havdala.
You just made it in Havdala.
That's right. So it's a funny little
kind of a twist on the reverse.
There's a game like that where you almost like musical chairs, but like musical cups. You're holding one cup of Birkat Hamazon, no bracha, you put it down, pick up another one, make Havdala, and then drink that, and then go back to cup number 1 and drink that again. So in case you had 5 cups during your meal, now you have 7. Okay, so that clarifies the halacha in regard to that. What do you want to say something?
No, I'm just saying it's like you pause, you do your Havdala because it comes first, and then you do but you don't do Bora Perigif in a second time.
You don't do Bora Perigif in a second time, that's right.
I just have a question. If you do it on one cup and you take a sip for the mitzvah, for Birkat Hamazon, can I now fill the cup?
No, you shouldn't.
And do
so two things. First of all, you can't take that sip because you're not allowed to drink before Havdala. In your meal, you were allowed to eat because it was before Birkat Hamazon, but now you're not allowed to drink. Okay. Right? But and number 2, if you already have more wine, you're not allowed to combine 2 mitzvahs into 1 cup. Right? You have 2 issues there. So to avoid that was this whole little scenario where he's holding 1 cup, putting it down, going to the second cup, drinking Havdala, and then coming back to cup number 1.
So now when you did Havdala, do I need to drink the full glass to get to my second glass, or can I just have a sip, taste from the Havdala glass, and then taste from the Birkat?
That's correct. Just a taste from each. Okay, so the minimum amount for drinking is a cheekful.
Okay,
that's the minimum. So the best case is 3.5 ounces, which is Revius. So actually, there's 3 options. The best case scenario in drinking wine is to drink majority of the cup, irrespective of how big the cup is. Option 2 is at least a Revius, or actually the majority of it, to drink the majority of a Revius, something like 3 ounces, maybe even less even. And then this minimum is a cheekful, meaning one side, one cheek.
So you're fine. Take a sip from this, take a sip from that.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So just have smaller cups. I actually have I have at home specifically smaller cups
Havdala, right?
for Havdala, especially if it's late at night, and it's
I don't drink it, and my wife doesn't drink it, so
if it's
I
late
have
at,
to
if
save
yeah,
it up.
exactly, if it's late at night,
That's about
And-
3.5 ounces.
He's
something like that,
big
yeah.
cup.
3.5
Okay.
ounces, 4 ounces. The small silver bechers that they make for kids,
Yeah.
most of them are big enough.
Huh.
So I use one of those. Well, a little bit of a bigger one that I use for Havdala,
'Cause when I used to go to Itchy's,
especially if it's late at night and drink another cup of wine now. It's smaller.
when I went to Itchy's for the Seders, he gives me these big cups.
Yeah, you got to be
After
careful with
4
that.
cups, I couldn't even stand up.
Yeah,
Yeah.
if you're very careful with that. Yeah,
I have-
I definitely buy.
So
Before the
just-
Seder, I go to buy 4 ounce cups. It's like 3.75 ounce cups
Yeah,
for the Seder. I
buy
use
the
those.
plastic ones, or yeah,
For myself, I use a regular
yeah,
becher.
for
With my guest, I can't impose on my guest to drink all that wine.
Yeah.
If someone wants a bigger cup, gives them to hate, I'll give them a bigger cup. But I buy specifically minimal size cups because it's a lot of wine.
So you buy the plastic ones.
Yeah, that's
You're
nice.
allowed to do like a kiddush on.
Okay, good question. I buy the more expensive plastic ones. Can I tell you? This idea of combining 2 plastic cups together is, I don't believe that there's any value to that.
Another question. Sorry,
Yeah.
I heard. I don't know how. Basically, I heard. Let's say you do Friday night kiddush or whatever. So you drink a bit, like a sip, and let's say I don't want to finish it, or I'm not. I heard it's like good or whatever. Let's say to keep it and then add Saturday to the same cup and do again kiddush on.
Yeah, there's such a thing.
There is, or it's not. You're not.
There's such a thing, but
Okay.
I don't know if because you want to avoid drinking too much wine.
No, just no. I heard it's like
It's a thing.
yeah. And
Could
then
be.
you do it again Saturday night or whatever. Like it's like you're blessing the
Keeping the cup. Yeah, it could be. I don't
I
know.
don't know.
Anyway. Okay, so this is as regards to the halacha goes. I'm gonna stop the recording and restart it to get to the Gemara because we have to start do a little bit of Gemara. Start the next subject. 1 second.